Hello everyone, so this is today's newspaper analysis of 26 February 2026 Thursday. तो हमारा हेडलाइन है Will not let anyone defame institution CGI on NCERT book। तो ये कुछ NCERT से रिलेटेड है कि NCERT's top book sale regret hold judiciary in highest esteem। जो क्लास 8 का सोशल साइंस का बुक है उसके बारे में हुआ है कि कुछ जुडिशरी का करप्शन के बारे में मेंशन है एनसीईआरटी बुक में, तो उसको अभी रोक लगा दिया गया है और उससे रिलेटेड जो भी मैटर चल रहा है तो इस पे आएगा एडिटोरियल, तो देखेंगे। दूसरा न्यूज़ है लिंक्ड बाय ब्लड एंड सैक्रिफाइस बैक गाजा पीस पीएम टू इजराइल पार्लियामेंट। PM Narendra Modi being conferred with the Speaker of the Knesset medal by Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana in Israel Parliament. Peace initiative must address issue of Palestine, Modi tells the Knesset. In a significant formulation before Israeli parliamentarian in the Knesset, Prime Minister Narendra Modi Wednesday backed the Gaza Peace Initiative, saying it holds the promise of a just and durable peace for all the people of religion, including addressing the Palestine issue. His remarks are significant given that a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is holding in Gaza for 2 years of intense fighting, becoming the first Indian Prime Minister to address the Knesset hours after he was received by counterpart. तो एक नया मेडल फिर से मिल गया है हमारे पीएम को। पास्ट में भी बहुत सारे मेडल्स मिल चुके हैं, आप वो सब भी देख सकते हैं फॉर एग्ज़ाम पर्पस। आगे बढ़ते हैं। Leopard rescued from Ghaziabad school's toilet seen roaming in the residential areas। तो ये आपका एक केस हो जाता है जिसमें हम लोग बोलते हैं ना कि ह्यूमंस एंड वाइल्ड लाइफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जो हैबिटेट डिस्ट्रक्शन से मेनली होता है, बिकॉज हमारे जो एनिमल हैं उनका हैबिटेट बहुत कम हो गया है, तो अब वो बेसिकली सिटीज़ एंड विलेजेस में आ रहे हैं, तो क्रिटिकल एक इशू है। ओके, आगे बढ़ते हैं। और गूगल मैप फॉर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी BRPL's डिजिटल ट्विन ऑफ पावर ग्रिड। तो डिजिटल ट्विन सिस्टम इंटीग्रेट्स डेटा ऑन डैशबोर्ड फॉर AI टू डिटेक्ट एनोमलीज एंड फॉर प्रिडिक्टिव इंटरवेंशन। Power discoms are increasingly turning to digital tools amid rising demand for electricity and increase in the uses of solar panel, electric vehicles and smart meters. Equipped with real-time data, a digital twin system integrates data on a dashboard for AI to detect the anomalies for predictive intervention. This is a new technology we are implementing to make our grid more reliable and more resilient. With this, we plan to reduce the number of power outages as well as reduce the duration of power outages. This is about the Delhi Power, मतलब दिल्ली पावर मिनिस्टर ने बोला है ये सब। What is digital twin in the context of a power grid? A digital twin, which according to BSES officials acts like a Google map for electricity, is a digital replica of a physical electricity network which is continuously updated. It mirrors the substations, transformers, feeder lines and consumers meter on a virtual platforms. Unlike the static map, it receives real-time data from the field and reflects the actual condition of the network at any given moment. Traditionally how it is different. मतलब जो कन्वेंशनल ग्रिड है उससे ये कैसे अलग है? तो ट्रेडिशनली यूटिलिटीज़ रिस्पॉन्ड आफ्टर अ फॉल्ट अकर, complaints or alarm trigger field inspections, and restoration begins only after the problem is identified. But a digital twin allows predictive intervention. It can flag early signs of equipment stress, forecast overload, and identify the potential weak points before they lead to outages. And this reduces the response time and improves reliability. What are the benefits? तो benefits में है beyond fault management, digital twin support load optimization, planning for future demand, and integration of renewable energy. The initiative also help track and curb the power theft, optimize load management, and improve overall grid resilience. Globally similar digital twin system have enable utilities to cut the operational cost by 2 to 4% and reduce the restoration time up to 20%. तो दिस इज़ अबाउट अ ट्विन सिस्टम, डिजिटल ट्विन सिस्टम जो कि हमारा पावर डिस्कॉम्स यूज़ कर रहे हैं. आगे बढ़ते हैं. तो ये है नेक्स्ट सेशन 3 लैंग्वेजेस इन क्लास 6. इंग्लिश कैन बी अ फॉरेन लैंग्वेज. तो ये कुछ CBSE करिकुलम में कुछ जो भी चेंजेस और अपडेशन हो रहे हैं उसके बारे में है. From 2026 to 27 academic session onward, the central CBSE is set to implement the National Education Policy and a National Curriculum and CFSE 2023 recommendation on introducing a third language other than the two language to students in class 6. Official sources said that English will be considered a foreign language, and the NEP states that at least 2 of 3 languages should be native to India. For schools that teach English in class 6 will become the one foreign language that can be taught in addition to the 2 Indian languages. If a foreign language is taught as a third language in class 6 like French or German, it will be have to accompanied by 2 Indian languages. This also paves the way to the third language be made mandatory all the way until class 10 in the later years. And the NCFSE recommends that all 3 languages continue in class 9 and 10. Class 10 board examination in 2031 will require students to write an exam for the third language as well, unlike the current system of 2 languages. ठीक है. और जो हमारा तीसरा लैंग्वेज, दिस विल इंक्लूड तमिल, तेलुगु, मलयालम, कन्नड़, गुजराती, बांग्ला. For class 9 and 10, all 3 languages will continue in secondary stage. By the end of class 10, grade 10, school will ensure the development of capacity of basic communication for the social purpose in language 1, 2 and 3, and linguistic proficiency for academic use in the classroom for R1, मतलब जो है आपका language 1 and 2 and 3. ओके, सो आई थिंक हम लोग का एक पहले भी न्यूज़ में था कि हमारे जो 3 लैंग्वेज पॉलिसी समथिंग, तो ये भी चल रहा है. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Milan concludes INS Vikrant, India's indigenous aircraft carrier, during the closing ceremony of exercise Milan 2026, Indian Navy premier multilateral maritime exercise in Visakhapatnam. तो मिलान के बारे में जो भी कंडक्ट हुआ है विशाखापट्टनम में, जो कि हमारा नेवी का मल्टीलेटरल मैरीटाइम एक्सरसाइज है. आगे बढ़ते हैं. ओके, सो दिस इज अबाउट करप्शन. 4 करोड़ सीज हुआ है उड़ीसा में माइनिंग ऑफिशियल के घर. दिस इज अबाउट जस्टिस यशवंत वर्मा. कुछ Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla on Wednesday reconstituted a three-member committee to set the probe on the grounds of removal of the Justice Yashwant Verma after the warned bed of cash that recovered from his Delhi residence last year. Okay, आगे बढ़ते हैं. और एडिटोरियल पेज पे देखते हैं इन यूएस टैरिफ जजमेंट हाउ जुडिशरी डू द रेड लाइन. तो it remains to be seen which power is invoked by Trump, what the procedural safeguards are, and whether they require the approval of Congress under the US Constitution. Learning Resources is a small business in Illinois that imported education toys from the China. It filed a suit in the U.S. District Court of the District Columbia challenging the imposition of tariff. Another small business joining the litigation. Meanwhile, the 5 other small businesses and the 12 state suits before the. Okay, I think ये उतना यूजफुल नहीं है. ठीक है, ये बेसिकली जो भी टैरिफ वॉर चल रहा है उससे रिलेटेड है. सो वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड लाइक दैट. आगे बढ़ते हैं. India's recent defense surge is not a sign of militarism, it is a sign of maturity. Okay, तो ये है article by Shashi Tharoor. In a welcome departure from the past trends, the Union Budget 2026 and 2027 has significantly bolstered its national security framework with a record allocation of 7.85 lakh crore rupees, representing a robust 15% increase over the previous year's estimate, and the primary engine of the growth is 21% surge in the capital outlay, which has risen to 2.1 lakh crore 2.19 lakh crore to celebrate the military modernization and the procurement of the next generation platforms like the fighter aircraft, submarines, and drones. Notably, the government has intensified its Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative by earmarking nearly 75% of the modernization fund for domestic procurement, while simultaneously boosting the revenue budget to rupees 3.65 lakh crore to ensure the higher operational readiness and logistics following the Operation Sindoor. India's defense spending has inevitably drawn some accusations abroad that New Delhi is fueling an arms race in Asia, and the charge is familiar. Any significant Indian military modernization is cast by some as destabilizing, provocative, or zingozoist, but this framing gets the story backwards. India is not out muscling anyone, it is belatedly doing what any serious state must do when confronted with the hard power realities. The recent surge in defense spending is not escalation, it is a deterrence consolidation, a long overdue effort to close the glaring gaps, to reduce the vulnerability to coercion, and ensure that the outcome of a future crisis is not determined by whichever adversary fires the first shot. Deterrence, after all, is not a matter of slogans or sentiment. It is a material condition rooted in capability. An adversary is deterred only when it believes that aggression will fail or cost more than it's worth. This recognition is especially urgent because India's security environment has grown more complex. Pakistan's military postures remains tightly coupled to its nuclear strategy designed to exploit any conventional imbalance. Its tolerance for risks, particularly under domestic political strain, is not something we can prudently bank on. China, meanwhile, has spent 2 decades modernizing its forces, expanding its naval reach, and hardening its position along the line of actual control. Add to this geopolitical uncertainty unleashed by the Donald Trump Washington, whose global commitment are subject to transactionalism. India has no interest in being dependent on whims of any external power, friendly or otherwise. Strategic autonomy, if it means anything, requires a credible national capability. A country that cannot defend its border, protect its sea lane, or absorb the first blow without collapsing into crisis is not strategically autonomous. It is merely exposed. India inhabits a region in which our adversaries are alert to the perceived weaknesses. Under invested investment creates the worst of both the world. तो बेसिकली ये आर्टिकल ये कहना चाहता है, इसका क्रक्स है कि जो हम लोग, जो हमारा गवर्नमेंट है, जो मिलिट्री में इतना इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, जो हमारे डिफेंस में इतना इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, दैट इज़ 7.85 लाख करोड़ रुपीज़, और पिछले साल से 15% का इंक्रीज़ भी हुआ. तो ये एक मैच्योरिटी है, ये ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि हम लोग हार्ड पावर में किसी से पीछे नहीं रहना चाहते, किसी पे डिपेंडेंट नहीं रहना चाहते हैं. क्योंकि अभी जो वर्ल्ड का जो ऑर्डर है वो बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स है. हमारा जो नेबर है, नेबरिंग जो कंट्रीज़ हैं वो भी बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स है, अनस्टेबल है. हम लोग बांग्लादेश है, चाइना है, पाकिस्तान है, तो कभी भी कुछ भी हो सकता है. पाकिस्तान जो कि न्यूक्लियर स्टेट बोलता है खुद को, तो हमेशा वो धमकी देता है कि न्यूक्लियर का यूज़ करेंगे. तो बेसिकली इस सारे सिचुएशन में और इन सारे चीज़ों पे द चेरी ऑन द टॉप वो हो जाता है ना कि अमेरिका, जो डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का जो पॉलिसी होता है वो भी इतना अनसर्टेन है. तो आई थिंक अ मोर सिक्योर इंडिया इंश्योर्स अ मोर स्टेबल एशिया. तो हम लोग को ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हम लोग अपना दैट वी डोंट डिपेंड ऑन एनीवन. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Politics distracts from the meat of the matter in Bihar. Some time ago, I was talking to a young man. Okay, so this is written by Sanjay Srivastav. Sanjay Srivastav कौन है? The writer is a distinguished research professor, Department of Anthropology and Sociology in London. Okay, so ये बिहार से related है, ठीक है. People make choices about food to represent themselves. The recent ban on the sale of meat nearby educational institution by the Bihar government upturns this relationship. Dead meat now has the capacity to influence how the living react. Okay. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Over the past 2 decades, his family, marginal farmers on the poor quality land, sold a great deal of his ancestral holdings to the global real estate companies. This has provided for the large house, cars, nutritious food, and perhaps the most importantly, the educational opportunities for the children of the household. Access to the modern education largely denied to the community to which my interlocutor belongs means that he was able to secure a job that allows the global travel. An important part of our discussion concerned his shift from vegetarian diet customary in his community to non-vegetarian one, and the road he had traveled from the dal sabzi to omelets and the fried fish was also a story of his transformation as he saw it to a cosmopolitan identity. There is a history to the relationship between food and identity, such as caste and self-definition. The modern history of the relationship between the food and the identity is, however, rooted in the two other contexts. The more recent of these is the history of aspirations that concerns the Rakesh culinary adventures. A slightly older one has to do with the rise of the nationalist consciousness. Some of most striking passages in the autobiography nationalist Bipin Chandra Pal concerned his observation about food in the Calcutta, the city he has come for higher education. For Pal, the city's food cultures define urban life itself. In both cases, food represents who we are. People make choices about food to represent themselves. The recent ban on the sale of meat near education institutions and the religious places by the Bihar government upturns the relationship. Dead meat now has the capacity to influence how the living react. The Bihar Deputy Chief Minister Vijay Kumar Sinha has said that selling meat near temples and education institutions will lead to social disharmony and aggression among children respectively. uh, did dead flesh over have the capacity to influence social relations and emotions? And are vegetarians inherently peaceful? Violent tendencies in children are a result of social circumstances. Male children might be socialized too aggressive to meet generally accepted norms of masculinity, or they might be reared in an environment where violence against a different religious community is promoted as a normal activity. Neither a vegetable nor meat has any role in making of the social life of humans. Only humans do. Buddhism is frequently represented as a religion of peace, but meat eating is common among Buddhists, and even though it seems almost redundantly to say that Adolf Hitler greatly favored the vegetarianism, Sinha also noted that the ban followed consultations with the intellectuals during the public outreach programs. It is most likely that the intellectuals now advising him is unaware of the different ways in which eating has been interpreted in the recent history. Swami Vivekananda suggests that humans chose to be vegetarian or meat eating rather than vegetables, and meat exercising the influence upon humans is same thing that still holds true. However, and much more importantly, the new regulation regarding meat should be seen for what they are, an excuse for the lack of serious action to improve social and public welfare. Social harmony is best promoted through better public welfare measures, a good education system, measure to ensure the gender equity, public park, for example, rather than the fake politics of dead flesh. Separated by decades and social background, both Rakesh and Bipin Chandra Pal describe the capacities of human beings to determine their future through the choices they make. Both would be aghast at being told the lifeless objects, food items, choose them and make them what they are, but perhaps that is what this latest Meet episode is about, the continuing effort to produce a lifeless public. So basically ये है जो बैन हो गया है कि आप नहीं मंदिर के बगल में और एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन के बगल में मीट नहीं बेच सकते हैं, उसके उससे रिलेटेड है. तो इसमें सबका ओपिनियन हो सकता है, तो हमारे जो एडिटोरियल के राइटर हैं उनका ओपिनियन है ये. आगे बढ़ते हैं. ये HPV वैक्सीन के बारे में है. द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट इज set to roll out a nationwide single dose human papilloma virus vaccination campaign for 14-year-old girls to reduce India's highest burden of the cervical cancer. Almost 90% of the cervical cancer are caused by the persistent HPV infection, making it one of the two types of vaccine preventable cancers. HPV infection is also linked to the anal, penile, vaginal, vulvar, and throat cancers, and the incidence of this is also likely to come down after the vaccination. HPV is a common sexually transmitted infection. Around 14 types of HPV can potentially cause cancer. Vaccines work by protecting against either 2, 4, or 9 types of HPV. HPV immunization in the teenage years, when girls are going through puberty but not sexually active, result in better and longer immunity. A single dose is enough. The WHO का strategy है जो भी है. India accounts for the 5th of the global cervical cancer में 5वें स्थान पे है. ओके, सो ये बांग्लादेश के बारे में है कि न्यूली इलेक्टेड जो बांग्लादेश का पार्लियामेंट है, ओथ दे हैव टेकन ओथ, एंड चीफ इज तारिक रहमान, न्यू प्राइम मिनिस्टर. 70% of the Bangladeshi voting yes for the document called July National Charter. The 300 new MPs were also signed a second oath for the new Constitutional Reform Council. तो ये बेसिकली जो हमारा नेबर कंट्री है बांग्लादेश से रिलेटेड है. ओके, सो आज के लिए इतना है.